Here's a question for all you book lovers. If you listen to an audiobook, does that count as having read the book? That's a question that sparked a heated debate in our CBC newsroom. People felt very strongly on one side or the other.
Anyone who says that it's not reading, I challenge them. Like, quiz me, test me. I can talk about the plot. I can talk about all the characters. Plus, I can pronounce the characters' names properly.
Absolutely not. It is not the same thing as reading the book. You know, if you look up the word reading in the dictionary, it actually says the skill of reading the printed material.
It turns out it's something that everyone has an opinion on, including at a recent book club that I joined in on.
I feel like I'm cheating when I say I read a book, even though I didn't really read it. I just listened to an audiobook.
It's in the title, like an audiobook is a book. And I'm checking my Audible account right now. I've read 62 books, and in that same time period, I've read one paperback book.
I don't have anything wrong with it. I wouldn't consider it having read a book, though.
There are either books or whole chunks of those books that I personally didn't read, but I would still consider that I've read that book.
When I read a book, I do feel myself get incredibly engrossed in the story, which is something that I cannot create that experience with audiobooks.
A lot of different opinions. So let's ask the owner of this bookstore what he thinks.
I think listening to an audiobook and reading a book is the same thing. You might get different things out of the story, but two people can get different things out of any story. I think it makes reading more accessible. It makes those stories more accessible.
And of course, we had to put this question to a librarian. Actually, two.
Yes, I wholeheartedly believe yes. We have so many clients here at Ottawa Public Library that really only use our book on CD collection or our e-audiobook collection, and they are reading, they are readers.
Just my sense is absolutely it is reading, and because it's all about access to stories, and if we do that through reading a print or listening to a book, I think that is all the same.
But there has to be a scientific explanation to this big question. So we went to an expert on the science of reading.
I think all of you know it is not the same. It gives much of the same information, but the brain processes information in different ways. That's why we have people who can read in Braille. That's how we have people who can read, if you will, only with audio. But that is also how we read in a more typical way when the eye is involved at the first part of the reading act. So each of those gives a different way of getting the information we read into the cognitive and linguistic and affective areas that process what it all means. When we read auditorily, and I will say it through audio, what we are doing is skipping that visual language connection. So it's not the same, but the people who say they feel the same or they think the same, I have something to tell them too. Yes, you are activating those wonderful cognitive and affective and linguistic areas, but in a slightly different way. By excluding the kinesthetic, by excluding the visual, you are reading differently. So I'm all for it, but it's not a substitute. If you want the deepest form of reading, I always will recommend you read a printed book.
So there you have it. According to science, listening to an audiobook isn't exactly the same as reading it. But with so many things fighting for our attention these days, experts are just happy that we're picking up the pages or pressing play. Sannah, Choi, CBC News, Ottawa.